Okay, so now we're going to talk more about blades. Um, Things can go wrong at the socket end, which we already pretty much covered. And now we're going to work our way towards the tip of the blade. So if you're ever having intermittent off targets, or even just to double check in case you notice anything, one thing that can happen along the length of the blade is that the glue can come undone from the wire, and then your wire will pop. If you catch this early enough, then your wire won't be broken and you can glue it back down all safe like. Your wire might already be broken, in which case you'd see it when, like just like this, your blade would not go off target, but when you bend it like this, it'll go off target. And if you bend it at a certain spot, then you can, like, if you can't see the wire break, then you can kind of tell where it is. So just in terms of, like, you want to look along, and the wire should be tucked in to its little slot. Tucked into its little slot. You shouldn't be able to feel it or see it come out. A big part is you want to use your finger just to run along the top. If you do see the wire popping out, then what you want to do is, if you have super glue, then you can you pretty much want to bend the blade, and you're going to want to put it so it hooks into the one of the legs of the workbench. So you're going to put it so it's that way, and so the area is bent, and then you want to apply some super glue. At this point, the wire should be in the channel. You might have to help it along so that it nudge it in with a screwdriver before you put the super glue on, or even poke it in as the super glue is drying. But you want to bend it like that, poke it in the channel, put super glue on it. You might need to hold it there with a screwdriver just while it dries. But once the super glue is initially set, then you can leave it there for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then you're in the clear defense with it. The good thing about addressing the popped wire before it breaks is that way you don't have to rewire your weapon just yet. It's just something that's a good thing to keep an eye on, and easy to fix to avoid rewiring. Okay, so now we're at the tip. And so a lot of times what will happen is when your blade's just intermittently going off target, the barrel will be loose. So if you're fencing and it starts going off target, then you can just like reach up to the tip and grab the barrel and just give it a good tighten. And if it moves, then it's something to be aware of that your barrel's loose. If you let your barrel be loose for too long of a time, it'll actually break the wire up in there, and then you have to rewire your blade. So in a bout, you can just finger tighten it, but once say you've gotten down from the strip and it was being enough of a problem where you really should go fix it, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take the tape off the blade, which is very sad for me to do because the barrel's not loose here. But educational purposes, right? Okay. Okay, so I only took all the much tape you need to have exposed is just here and here. Ideally, you'd want to take it all the way off and then just retape it. I'm not going to be fencing in the near future, so I'm just going to leave it like this. So you can either put it in the vise, put your blade in the vise so that the barrel is exposed and the vise is grabbing onto the blade here. That works best if there's not tape. Or you can take your handy dandy pliers and needle nose, and one is going to grab the blade right near the barrel, and the other one is going to grab at the barrel has indentations where you can see how the pliers can just grab on those notches there at the base. Hopefully you can see those. So you're going to grab for those where it looks like it's meant to be grabbed. So grab it on the blade, grab it here, and then you just want to twist clockwise so that you're going to tighten your barrel down good and tight so that you protect that wire. Yep, just kind of give it a good amount of elbow grease, and then put the tape up and be on your merry way. So that's to fix if your barrel's loose. There can be other problems if you're having either total off-target light or intermittent off-target light. You can rotate the tip, and if it feels if it's sticky or if it feels grumbly, like there's stuff in there, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the tip out and then use a Q-tip to get down in there and just get the dirt out. We have our blades they're hitting the floor, they're in our bags, just stuff gets in there. So clearing it out will help that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Take a small screwdriver and just remove the little set screws. When you're taking the tip out, you want to be careful that you hold the button down because it is under spring pressure. So you don't want it to go flying across the room because then you have to go find it. Again, you want to have your parts tray to catch any parts that fall down, because finding the screws on the cage floor is not anyone's favorite task. You want to be careful taking the screw out. Make sure you have a good place to put your screwdriver, because if you mush down the head of the screw so that you can't get a good bite with the screwdriver, it's hard to get the tip out, near impossible. So say that my screw looks like it's just a mushed piece of metal. What you have to do then is you have to take a knife and you have to cut at the top of the screw to try and make a line where you can get a good bite with a screwdriver, a very fine screwdriver. You want to apply a lot of downward pressure when you're trying to do the screw to unscrew it with a screwdriver. And you just want to be careful that you're only trying to unscrew after you've worked with the knife to get a good notch there for the screwdriver to bite into. Just something to be aware of. Also, if you have a screw that's pretty mushed over at the top, find another one and don't put that one back in because you're just asking for trouble for the screw head being mushed over and you can't get it out. And then if you are ultimately unable to get it out after working with it with a knife and a screwdriver, then you have to rewire the blade. And you can't use the barrel. You can't reuse the barrel then because it's trash. So that's sad. Okay, so I've taken the tip apart. And what you can do is you can use a Q-tip to stick it in there and then wiggle it around, and it should come out dirty. And then you can do it with the other side of the Q-tip and just repeat with different Q-tips until it comes out clean. That'll just in general make everything better. So let's say, for instance, this would solve the problem if it was going intermittently off target. If my blade didn't pass weight test, I have the little spring in here. And so what you can do is you just take one finger on one end of the spring, one finger on the other spring, and just pull. See how it made the spring a little longer? You don't want to make your spring too long, and you always want it to end up, see how it goes nice and straight? If it ends up kinked over to one side, it's going to create an off-target light because it'll be touching the side of the barrel. So you just made it a little longer. In most instances, this is good enough to pass the weight test for a good while afterwards, but if you've been using your spring for a long, long time and have already stretched it several times, then the metal's just fatigued. So you'll know that if you put this back in and then it still doesn't hold up the weight test, in which case, just go get another spring. Ask a teammate, use one of your old ones. Okay, so now it's time to put it all back together. One thing to do is to look in the barrel and make sure you see a brass cup. I don't even know if I can get you guys to see it, but oh yeah, okay, cool. So see that brass cup in there? Looks like an octagon, and then you see the nib right in the middle. Awesome. Videos are great. That's what it should look like. It shouldn't look like that, minus the pink of my finger. See how it looks like that, where there's nothing there, or there might just be a black cup there without the metal brass bit. In that instance, you may have been seeing off targets before then. In that instance, your wire's broken up at the tip and your little cup thing fell out, so you no longer have a connection. So you no longer have a working blade. So you have to rewire it. But in this case, that's the rewire is another video. But in this case, the cup is in there and we should be good to go. So we're going to put the screw back in and we're going to put the tip back in. These are German points, by the way, so it's nice you just put the tip in and do the set and look at the set screw and just screw the set screw back in. I don't think any of you will encounter French tips, but in case you do, you just have to line up the hole on the tip with the hole in the barrel, which is a little bit annoying, but if you do it often enough, you're going to get a good hang of it. Another thing when you're trying to put the screws back in, this goes for either German or French, is you want to make sure they go in straight. So one thing I recommend doing is when you're putting it in there with a screwdriver, turn it to the left a little bit until you feel it click, and then you'll have a straight shot to go in, screwing it in. So do it a couple turns backwards, so going out until you feel the click, which means the threads have lined up, and then you can just go right in. It makes it a lot easier. All right, so we hear a click and a return with the blade, which is what we should hear. If there's any other sounds or if it feels kind of wrong, or if you're still having problems with off target, there's always the option of taking it apart and putting it back together with various other parts until it works. Sometimes, if you're ever having trouble getting your tip out, sometimes your barrel can be dented. If your name is Linda Zhang, that happened to you a lot. But in that case, you can ask one of your teammates for a reamer, and it makes the inside part of the barrel bigger, and it just eliminates where the dent had pushed the metal in. So that's if you ever have trouble getting your tip out, or if you put your tip back in and it doesn't want to slide all the way that you need it to slide, or any of that type of stuff, you can just look in the barrel and see if there's a dent. If you have any other instance of it acting off target and you not seeming to be nothing seems to be wrong, you can always try a different spring and try a different tip, and just play with it that way until you get it to work. Sometimes it's just a matter of the different parts being manufactured different places and the specs don't line up exactly, so it just takes a little bit of playing with it. But other than that, also when you do retape your blade, you want to make sure you have the tape all the way up to the edge of the barrel. You don't want it over the edge of the barrel, because then the tape goo will get in the mechanism and then you have to clean your tip out again. And that's just more time that none of us want to spend in a cage. Or if your tape is too far down or it's patchy, if the tip depresses and that exposed barrel touches the lame at the same time, the box will not register a touch. It will be like you never hit them. Be vigilant about your tip tape, because I've won bouts that way that I shouldn't have won because somebody didn't look after their tip tape. So it would really suck for that to be the other way around and you lose because you didn't just put an extra ring of tape around your tip. In general, those are the things to be careful of. And the only thing really to be careful of is the wire and the cup up in here. The tip and the spring, you can't really hurt. You can't really mess them up. So other than that, just work with it and it'll work eventually.